For a more immersive experience, I recommend using headphones. But the small flatbed truck that brought Elena to her new home came to a halt by the rusted gate. The driver climbed lazily out of the cab, squinted at the house, and lit a cigarette. He clearly had no intention of helping her. Elena hauled the boxes out of the truck bed herself, paid the man in silence, and watched him drive away, leaving nothing behind but clouds of dust hanging over the road. Elena scanned the street and shivered. A man had stepped out of the house directly opposite hers. He stood there, watching her intently. He had bushy eyebrows, a thick black beard, and a heavy, sullen gaze. Elena raised her hand to wave hello, but there was no response. The man continued to stare, not moving a muscle. Elena felt a chill crawl down her spine. I hope the other neighbors are friendlier, she thought, as she walked toward the gate. The house sat deep within the lot, hiding behind thick thickets of lilac and overgrown berry bushes. It looked as if it had been waiting for its owners for a long time. The paint was sun-bleached, covered in fine cracks. The shutters hung slightly crooked, yet the building felt sturdy, solid. Elena took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of freshly cut grass and the bittersweet tang of blooming apple trees. Here, the sounds were different. The lazy hum of bees, the chirp of crickets, free and peaceful. She stepped onto the porch and it gave a faint groan under her weight. Inside, but the house was simple, large, airy. It smelled of dry wood and something else, something old, but pleasant, like a childhood memory. The bedroom impressed her most. It was flooded with soft light, but the main feature was the window. Large, almost taking up the entire wall. It looked straight into the garden, through the clouded glass. She could see the lilac bushes, the old apple trees, and a path of flat stones. The view was so peaceful that Elena caught her breath. She unlatched the lock and swung the windows open. Fresh air rushed in, but for a fleeting second, she thought she saw someone standing in the depths of the garden, hidden in the thick shadows of the trees. She squinted, looking closer, but saw no one. Only the branches, swaying in the breeze. She stepped back and closed the window, listening to the quiet click of the lock. For some reason, she felt calmer with the glass separating her from the garden, like it could protect her from whatever was lurking in the shadows. The first few days flew by, but the bearded man across the street continued to unnerve her. He watched her house for hours. Every town has its eccentrics, she told herself. Yet, as she fell asleep, she often found herself turning her head toward the window, making sure the garden was still there. It wasn't quite anxiety, it was an expectation. Then she began waking up at night. At night, the window would fog up. A thin, even veil of moisture covered the glass, as if someone had been breathing on it from the outside for a long time. One morning, and she froze. On the fogged glass, there was a clear mark, a small handprint of a child. Elena touched it instinctively, but pulled her hand back immediately, wiping her fingers on her pajamas, as if she had touched something forbidden. The following night, she didn't sleep. She listened to the silence. At some point, she heard soft, cautious footsteps circling the house. Elena sat up in bed, straining her eyes in the dark. Silence fell again, and then came a quiet, persistent tap on the glass. Elena jumped up and tore back the curtain, but there was only the motionless garden, in shadows, terrified. She called the police. The local deputy looked around and simply shrugged. Footprints in the grass? Staring isn't a crime, Elena. There's no case here. As the police car pulled away, a voice startled her. Hello, dear. Something wrong? An older woman, Valerie, stood by the fence. Elena told her everything. The tapping, the handprints. Valerie sighed. Don't fear Silas, but that house, the people who lived there before you, were strange, unfriendly, and they had a daughter, a girl, about 8 or 9. Valerie's voice dropped. At night, we heard sounds, crying, screaming. One night, I saw her standing barefoot under that window, shivering, tapping on the glass and whispering, Please, let me in. Elena felt sick. And the girl? She was a miracle, Valerie said. So kind, so sweet. And then she just vanished. The parents said she ran away. They packed up and left the very next day. The house sat empty for a long time. No one wanted to live there. And now, there's you. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She sat in the darkness. Suddenly, the mist began to crawl across the glass. The window was fogging up again. Elena leaned in and saw a child's face pressed against the pane. The girl was beautiful, but her eyes, they were unnaturally black, like coal-colored voids in her pale skin. The girl raised her hands and mouthed the words, Let me in. Elena recoiled in horror. This wasn't a living child. This was something else. The next night, Elena didn't run. She sat and waited. At midnight, the girl appeared from the mist. She pointed to the ground beneath the window. Then she faded away. In the morning, thus, Elena found a strange, pale flower growing exactly where the girl had pointed. Elena grabbed a shovel. She began to dig. The shovel hit something hard. She began clawing at the dirt with her bare hands. She found a wooden lid. She pried it open, and the stench of rot filled the air. Inside were tiny, fragile bones, a scrap of a blue ribbon. But what horrified Elena most were the scratches, deep, frantic scratches on the inside of the lid. The girl hadn't run away. Her parents had buried her, alive. Elena felt a surge of pity and rage. She believed the girl wanted peace. That night, when the mist appeared, Elena stood at the window, and opened it wide. I let you in, she said. Instantly, the girl's face changed. The black eyes turned into glowing embers of hate. Her mouth stretched into a jagged, needle-toothed grin. Elena tried to pull back, but it was too late. The entity dissolved into a black chill and surged into her. Visions flooded Elena's mind. Monstrous memories. She saw the girl smiling as she set fire to houses. She heard cold laughter as she slaughtered animals just to watch the life leave their eyes. The parents hadn't buried a child. They had buried a demon. Elena felt her soul being pushed into a dark corner. Her limbs were no longer hers. A soft, childish voice whispered inside her head, dripping with icy triumph. Thank you for letting me in. Later that night, Valerie was awakened by a pounding at her door. It was Elena, trembling. But as Valerie turned to get some tea, she saw Elena standing there with a heavy meat cleaver. A predatory grin was on her face. Elena, what are you doing? Elena laughed. A hollow, terrifying sound. Valerie tried to run, but Elena tackled her with impossible strength. The blade swung. Suddenly, a shot rang out. Elena slumped to the side. Silas, the neighbor, stood there with a shotgun. I knew, he rasped. I saw her years ago. with that look in her eyes. I've been waiting. Silas stood on the porch, lighting a cigarette, trembling. But when he looked back to check the body, his heart stopped. The spot where Elena had fallen was empty. There was no body, no blood, only the grass, slowly straightening up, as if the earth itself had swallowed the evidence. If you like the story, please support the channel with a like and a subscription. See you soon.